Mark Crispin Miller joins us today to talk about his book, Fooled Again: How the Right Stole the 2004 Election and Why They'll Steal the Next One Too Unless We Stop Them. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Why did you write Fooled Again? Some would say that we should move on from the 2004 election.
The fact of the matter is that there's no real evidence that Bush and Cheney were reelected by the people of this country. The only evidence is the official numbers.
How was the election stolen? These were things that happened mainly in Ohio, correct?
What happened there happened all over the country. This was a national campaign, you might call it a crusade, to use every tactic available, many of them quite old, some of them entirely new, to cut the Democratic vote and pad the Republican vote. It was a national crime spree, but the important point is that it was no one trick. There is no one smoking gun. It was a very sophisticated and diverse campaign to do everything possible to disenfranchise the majority.
So what if the Republicans stole votes? They didn't actually steal enough to change the outcome of the race, did they?
There's evidence that Kerry won this election, or would have won this election, by as many as 8 million votes. It was not that close. It was not close at all.
Isn't there voter fraud in every election?
Voter fraud, election fraud are practically as old as the Republic. Far and away, the major perpetrator of the fraud committed was the Republican Party. The Democrats didn't engage in this in any systematic or collective way. And I want to add, I'm not a Democrat, and I wouldn't be a Democrat, because the Democratic Party has turned a blind eye to this whole problem. Their attitude is unforgivable. As far as I'm concerned, they're in collusion with the Republicans. So I'm not an apologist for that party, but the fact is that the Gore race was an honest race. The Kerry race was an honest race. The evidence that the right has come up with to make the case that there was rampant Democratic voter fraud has all been discredited.
How has your book been received by the media?
This book has not received a single national review, not one. It's really quite remarkable, but it's part of the problem that the book deals with. The whole political establishment refuses to grant that this is a problem. They're in deep, deep denial.
If the race was stolen, then why wouldn't the Democrats make an issue of it?
They're so cowed by the Republicans. They're so frightened of being perceived as whiners, sore losers, conspiracy theorists. They won't go there. The implications of what happened in 2004 are shattering. I mean, the implications include the fact that we're not living in a functioning democracy, that the party in charge is not interested in democracy. It's interested in something much closer to fascism.
What are the prospects for upcoming elections?
You've got to make sure that everybody's able to vote and everybody's vote is counted. Now, if this citizens' movement largely fails and we head into the next elections without any appreciable reform, I believe that we have to be ready to refuse to accept the official results. It's going to come down to that. I mean, ultimately, the salvation of democracy does not depend on the Democratic Party, so-called. It doesn't depend on the media any longer, even though the framers intended the press to function to protect our freedoms. The salvation of democracy ultimately comes down to our saving it. It's up to us to step forward and say enough.
If you care about restoring a truly fair and accurate electoral process in the U.S., read this book. What can one do to make sure that their vote is counted fairly and honestly?
Not allow the establishment to refuse to shed light on what happened in 2004. That scandal has to resonate. Let it be the subject of debate. There's no more important issue than this. This is not just one worthy cause among many others, like environmentalism, saving the whales, and then there's also election reform. No, this is the keystone issue, because if a government knows it can act with impunity, if it can do whatever it wants, no matter what the people think or prefer, then all your other causes are doomed, and the democracy itself is finished.